In this episode of Let's Talk Toads, we'll discuss how weather can have a tremendous impact on SCN numbers during the growing season.
Greg, we know that environment plays a huge influence on some diseases, like Phytophthora. You get wet, and you might expect that. Or if you get cold, you might expect white mold. But what does environment and weather do with SCN?
A lot of people observe that in hot, dry years, things seem to be a lot worse due to SCN. And it was hard to kind of ferret out what was actually happening. Was there just more yield loss because the plants were stressed from drought as well as SCN? Or was there something up with the nematode? And one of the most convincing papers was one published out of Iowa State University of 15 years of data compiled from over 40,000 plots of variety trial plots. As soil moisture went down and soil temperature went up, soybean cyst nematode numbers throughout those 40,000 plots over 15 years increased linearly. So it was some actual hard data verification of what we had observed, that SCN is worse in hot, dry years, not just because plants are stressed from drought stress, but also because the nematode is reproducing much quicker, raising population densities.
So if you're a grower and you've got a hot, dry year, you might be able to use that idea or that knowledge to expect something different in soil sampling or manage it different in the future.
Yeah, you certainly would want to keep an eye on fields that had experienced drought stress, and those might be prime ones to sample to see if SCN's there, and you might not just only find it, but find it at fairly high levels.
What about other factors? What about soil factors?
There's one other overriding factor that's probably the most consistent thing I've ever seen with soybean cyst nematode, and that's soil pH. When I came to Iowa State in 1990, one of my first extension presentations, somebody in the audience, a farmer, told me that his soybean cyst nematode was worse in high pH spots. It took me about 10 years, and when I started doing grid mapping, we measured lots of things, including soil pH and SCN numbers. And when you put the soil pH and SCN maps side by side, they're about 85% in agreement. The high pH spots had the highest nematode numbers, and that was our first inkling that soybean cyst nematode, our first scientific inkling that SCN really liked high pH soils.
We have a lot of variable pH in the soils, probably all over the U.S. It's also a good reminder too, I always tell the growers that I need their ideas. Some of the best ideas in science come from them. They're the ones that are in their fields and know them better than anyone else.
Effective SCN management starts by knowing your number.